We left our last session talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan. We discussed that anyone who is in need is our neighbor and is deserving of our grace and mercy. We mentioned at the conclusion of session 1 that if we have the ability to help our neighbor, then we have the responsibility to initiate a neighborly relationship. Let's talk more about that relationship and what it requires of us. You'll remember from reading the parable of the Good Samaritan that Jesus closes his narrative with a question to the lawyer in Luke 10, verse 36. Which of these three do you think was neighbor to him who fell among thieves? Relationships usually go both ways between people. Jesus demonstrated that not only is the one in the ditch a neighbor, but the Good Samaritan is a neighbor too. Our neighbor is not just the person who is in distress, but he is also the one who provides help. Remember the words, "Go and do likewise." This means be a neighbor to those around you, reaching out to them and helping them and doing more than is required. The message of the parable isn't only we have to help poor people in a ditch, even if it's dangerous. The message also isn't just followers of Jesus have to help the poor because Jesus defined neighbor as anyone in need. Jesus told the parable to answer the question, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Therefore, the message of the parable is this: help because helping is the way of life that Christ taught us. No matter who you are, we're all in this together. Neighbor is a communal classification. The priest and the Levite, for all their experience in religious community, did not know how to recognize their bond or relationship with the man in the ditch. But the Samaritan did. He knew that life, not just for the needy one, but for everyone, and not just for the moment, but for eternity, requires being and having neighbors. Jesus describes why the Samaritan stopped, using the words, he was moved with pity. There are only two other characters in the Bible besides Jesus himself, namely the father of the prodigal son and the master who forgives a servant an enormous debt, who were described as having such compassion that they were moved to extraordinary action. As Christians, are we moved with pity? And does this pity move us to extraordinary action? In the guides, we invite you to go into these examples and think about them as models for your own lives. For now, let's consider a couple of practical ways we can be good neighbors. First, make time for others. Galatians 6:2 says, "Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ." It may not be possible to take away all pain, all the suffering, or all the problems of our neighbor, but we can make it easier for our brother or sister when we help them bear their burden. We have to have an open ear and an open heart in order to perceive their suffering. Second, help others in concrete ways. James 2:15-16 says, "If a brother or sister is naked or destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Depart in peace, be warmed and filled,' but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit?" Walk through these 5 words and discuss how the Samaritan lived them in his interaction with the man in the ditch. You will find questions in your guide that help explore each of these words. Recognize. We must recognize that every person is created in the image of God. Because of this realization, we recognize the need to create a relationship with the people we serve in order to determine their need and work to serve them effectively. Respond. As we can read in Isaiah 61:1-3, Jesus came to proclaim good news, bind up the brokenhearted, proclaim freedom, and comfort all who mourn. We respond to his call to serve in the same way. Relieve and restore. We strive to relieve people's physical needs and work to restore and strengthen people spiritually. Renew. As we work to relieve and restore people, the result is a reciprocal faith, hope, and feeling of excitement. This work brings us to new perspectives and a renewed relationship with Christ. These 5 words are core values of Charitable Ministry, an affiliated ministry of the New Apostolic Church USA. Through these 5 values, we desire to turn the call of Jesus to love our neighbors into real, actionable service in the world. Ultimately, we should all be neighbors and serve together, whether on our own, among family and friends, or in our congregations and communities. When we serve others in this way, we demonstrate a practical understanding of these concepts. Often, however, understanding the need for such a transformation is easy, but we struggle with the question, how and where to start? If the journey of becoming a true neighbor is such an experience for you, serving with Charitable Ministry might broaden your awareness. To learn more about one of their humanitarian projects or ways that your congregational initiatives can be supported, visit their website at re.nac-usa.org or find them on Facebook.